Hello there y'all, and welcome back. If this is your first time listening to one of my videos, then I am so glad to have you here. I'm Rain, and this is Fennec Fables, where we delve into some fun prompts for adding depth to your TTRPG games, to give you some interesting ideas to think about as you play or prepare. This video is actually going to be a continuation of a prior one, which I will try and have pop up here on screen for you. You won't have to have seen it to watch this one, but it will give you some context for this video and make for a more cohesive story. I will put a small spoiler warning, as while this game was heavily homebrewed, there are some locations mentioned in Curse of Strahd that will be getting brought up. I won't be covering every event that happened in this segment, as it happened well over 5 years ago, but I will be bringing in the most pertinent parts with the best of my recollection. This video is to give some closure to the full story and to finish a discussion about player expectations and the importance of talking with the group. With that all said and done, let's get back to it. To do a small recap, in the prior video I talked about how I had been invited into a continuation of Curse of Strahd, and because I came in with the expectations in no session 0, I ended up walking into the game with a lawful good Forge cleric called Fables, and it turns out that the other players were all playing some version of Evil PC. This obviously ended up leading to quite a bit of friction where I was the problem. Things progressed with me trying to make things work, but in the end, it became apparent that I needed to be one to remove my PC for the good of group cohesion. I worked out an exit for that PC with the Game Master as well, as a new PC that I felt would be better suited to the game and group dynamic. After my PC died, in comes Anung, and if you know the reference, please sound off in the comments, as I'd love to see some fellow fans. I decided to make a morally gray totem barbarian bounty hunter. This would be a good in with the existing party, and meant I would better align with their values. Namely, he only cared about getting paid, getting into brawls, and having a good time. I worked with the Game Master so I'd be appropriately kitted out for the party, and have the amount of items that they did at the time. I had a Broom of Flying that I tricked out to be like that one from Black Clover, but that was more for the biker aesthetic I was going for, which included a reflavored Butcher's Bib magic item that was instead a leather jacket, which was pretty sick to have with all that blood on it. That little setup out of the way, the party did end up meeting my PC, and after a bit of standoff, they seemed to have a bit of respect for me, and I tagged along. It took a little while for them to really key my new PC into what they were doing, but there were good brawls along the way, and they paid well, so he was happy to join along. He had connections with the nearest city's chief guard and his family, and he leveraged that to have some leads that the party needed. Eventually, it came to light that the party was collecting what apparently was the energy core to a Spelljammer ship, as they contended with the realization that they had multiple other realities that had all crashed in on one another, and their other realities' people were dying. While we did the search for these parts, we had to contend with the power vacuum that had initially occurred as the actual Strahd had died, and new Strahd had yet to fully take on this mantle. It seems that after Fables died, he used that as an excuse for his personality switch to finalize, and he truly became new Strahd. At one point, we came into another Amber Temple that was actually coalesced with the power that we ourselves had in other realities, and so we could draw on that to empower ourselves, which I have to admit was a rather cool idea. It had us all chasing through these sarcophaguses mid-fight, looking to gain more strength in various ways. I cannot recall what each person's contained, but I remember I chased down mine as it basically quartered all damage I received as an Emerald Dragon Bear Totem Barbarian. As these things continued on, we ended up having to fight against a rather substantial group of giants in an army, in what became a rather large siege combat that the Game Master ended up making several mock-up city walls for, as well as massive standees for these giants. It was an epic battle on a grand scale, and I recall at one point launching myself off my broom to try and impact one of the giants to hit the ones behind them and topple over. It was a very impressive set piece, and I wanted to give credit where it was due. Guy put in a lot of work and really cared about the game. During that siege, the chief guard was severely harmed, and in a bit of emotional roleplay, my PC cried and attempted to get them healed. The other party members actually ended up working together with me, which was a great moment for all of us. This did end up working, but we had to rush off to contend with some other greater force, and at this point the details start to get a little hazy. One of the last things I remember was post some massive boss fight that I can no longer recall why we fought, was us getting onto the ship and flying off to do something in space. It was here that two very interesting things happened. The first of which was that Anung and new Strahd actually had a rather touching heart-to-heart, discussing the difficulties and trials that they had contended with recently, and overall we had to begin to have some real actual character bonding. What came in the middle of that was the Lich PC who said, and this one will always stick in my memory, "Ew, emotion. I'm good. I wish I and the ship were in the Feywild," and then cast the wish spell. Those of us that were on the ship ended up having to find a means of stopping our fall, as we were left a little perplexed. I believe that the Game Master said that the core was a separate item, and so we were left with that, but the non-functioning ship and her were in the Feywilds. It actually ended up ending the campaign there, as they had left with the only means we had of continuing on the plot line that the Game Master had set up. None of the other players really seemed that upset by it, and I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of glad it had ended so abruptly, because it honestly felt rather par for the course for this campaign. It was in character for the Lich PC and was a fairly funny ending, at least, for a rather chaotic campaign. Now, here is where I'll ask y'all's thoughts on that type of ending. How would you have felt in that scenario, dear viewers? Head down to the comments and let us know your thoughts. With that, though, we come to talking about expectations in tabletop role-playing games. The start of this story involved me coming into a game with a specific expectation on what the game was going to be, and then realizing that those ideas were entirely incorrect. I plan on doing a full deep dive into explaining my own Session 0 preferences and notes, but for this video I feel like talking about the overall need of making sure that the group as a whole is involved in the same story goals. And what I mean by that is that everybody at the table is looking for the same kind of story. For example, I came into this game expecting a tone of dark and gritty with a beacon of hope, and the theme of good conquering evil. I will let you know I skipped over quite a lot in the retelling of this, but suffice it to say the actions taken in this game were very much that of a group that was not good conquering evil, but evil taking what they felt was theirs. When discussing tone with a group as well as theme or style, there's not a need to adhere strictly to this, as there's always some deviation somewhere in the game, either for levity, tenseness, moments of love, or just balls-to-the-walls kookiness. You need the bitter with the sweet, as it were, to make all the individual notes of a game function. But it is good to set up things so that everyone may be prepared and make the right decisions in their pre-game setup. I feel that if I had known this was the type of game they were making, I likely would have made a far better initial setup, and it's quite possible that this game would have played out entirely different. I am glad that in the end we were all able to have a fun time playing together, and it was a very important lesson for me to learn to ask these sorts of details at character creation if it's not already brought up by the Game Master, and for me myself to bring this up during character creation in games I run. There's a lot to be said about this, and that even with the "it's what my character would do" discussions, it isn't the player that makes the character, and sometimes what you need to do is make one that won't do that. In my case, speaking with the Game Master was the best solution, as he was able to help me move my old PC out in a way that was mostly in line with my hopes, and bring in a new PC that we both felt would work better with the narrative and the game. Because while your PC is important to you, it is the group's fun that you're trying to facilitate. But with that said, what about you, dear viewer? Have you ever played in a game where you ended up feeling like you were the odd one out, and how did you end up fixing that? Please share your stories with us in the comments below. If you can, a like, share, or especially a subscribe really helps as I work on getting more of these videos out. I've been working on my way to 500 subscribers, and each new one is a great joy to me. If you enjoy answering TTRPG prompts or questions, please join me on my Twitter or Blue Sky, where I post daily, which is in the description down below, and linked on the main channel page. Who knows, your responses may be part of a future video. If you have any suggestions for future topics, I'm always interested in what you folks would like to hear. You can send them either by email or by joining the channel Discord, where you can chat with me and fellow cool people. Thanks again, y'all, and I hope these ideas were useful to you and help you tell better tales. Bye!